She was just a shy, small-town girl from Nebraska, a virgin who had never broken a rule in her life. But one wild dare at a college party changed everything. She snuck into a billionaire's hotel suite, just for laughs. She didn't know he'd be there. She didn't know he'd see her. And she definitely didn't know he'd fall in love with her honesty, her heart, and the innocence that shook his world. But when the world found out, their love turned into a scandal that nearly destroyed them both. Until one moment on national TV changed everything forever. This is the story of how a dare turned into a revolution, and how love became a lesson the whole world needed to learn. Emily Carter had always lived a careful life, the kind of life wrapped in soft cotton, stitched with safety, and sewn tightly with rules. She was the girl who sat by the window in libraries, the one who brought her professors handmade thank you cards, who wore oversized sweaters and read poetry, while the world outside buzzed with chaos and color. Boys looked at her, but never long enough. They'd call her sweet, smart, the girl you bring home to your mom, but never the girl you kiss under fireworks. That night in New York City, everything about Emily screamed out of place. The blaring music, the flashing lights, the red plastic cups, the sticky floors. Her heart thudded louder than the bass. She wasn't supposed to be here, but her best friend Jess had insisted. "We're graduating, Em." Just one night to stop being the quiet girl. And for once, Emily wanted to stop being the quiet girl. She wanted her heartbeat to matter. She wanted to feel wild, alive, more than just a page in someone else's story. "Okay," Jess said, halfway through her fourth drink, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Truth or dare?" Emily sighed, smiling nervously. "Dare, I guess." Jess leaned in. "I dare you to sneak into Aidan Blackwell's penthouse suite." Laughter erupted from the group. Someone nearly dropped their drink. The Aidan Blackwell? The billionaire tech mogul. The man who built an empire out of a college dorm. The man whose blue eyes graced every magazine, who never dated publicly, who never smiled. A myth and a mystery, and reportedly staying at the Plaza Hotel that very weekend. Emily froze. "That's crazy. I'm not doing that." "Chicken?" Jess smirked. And there it was. The pressure, the glances, the chance. "Do it, Emily. One night of wild. You'll regret it forever if you don't." She wanted to say no, but then she thought, maybe she was tired of being forgettable. 10 minutes later, Emily stood outside the elevator of the Plaza Hotel, her breath shallow, her palms damp. Her heart begged her to turn around, but she didn't. The gold-plated elevator doors opened silently. She stepped in, pressed the button for the top floor, and held her breath the entire way up. Her mind screamed, "This is insane. He's not even real." But her feet kept moving, each step echoing like a drum in the silent corridor. She reached suite 4500, the penthouse. She told herself she'd just knock, take a picture of the door, and run back. That would be enough. But the door wasn't locked, the handle turned, and in a moment that felt like the world paused, she stepped inside. It was like walking into a dream. Crystal chandeliers twinkled from the ceiling. Cream-colored walls glowed in the moonlight pouring through the wide windows. A grand piano stood in the corner like something from an old black-and-white film. Everything smelled expensive, like leather, whiskey, and something sharp and clean. Emily's breath caught in her throat. She stepped forward slowly, afraid even her breath would shatter the silence. She glanced around. No one. Maybe he's not here, she thought. She tiptoed deeper into the suite, laughing softly at how ridiculous this was. She imagined telling her future kids, "Your mom once broke into a billionaire's suite on a dare." And then, a door creaked. She froze. From the master bathroom, steam drifted into the room like ghostly fingers. A man stepped out, shirtless, a towel slung low on his hips. He froze too. Time stood still. He wasn't just any man. It was him, Aidan Blackwell. His hair was damp, messy in a way that looked unintentional but perfect. Water glistened on his sculpted chest, catching the light. His sharp jawline clenched, his eyes piercing blue, like frost over fire. Their eyes locked. Emily's mind went blank. Her soul screamed, "Run!" But her feet betrayed her. I, she stammered. I didn't mean it was a dare. I thought, I'm not. Aiden blinked, stepping closer. His voice, low and smooth, cut through the silence. You're not one of them. Emily blinked. One of who? He tilted his head, studying her. The ones who break in for fame, or money, or secrets. You look like you got lost on the way to a fairy tale. Her cheeks flushed crimson. I'm so sorry, I'll go. This was stupid. I never do things like this. A long silence. Then, Aiden chuckled. Not mocking, not cold, software surprised, like laughter was foreign to him, and in that moment, something shifted. A billionaire in his palace, a small-town girl in the wrong place. Two strangers from two different planets, but neither looked away. You're not leaving yet, Aiden said softly. Emily blinked. What? You came this far. Might as well stay for tea. Tea at 2 a.m. in a billionaire's penthouse. Emily had officially fallen off the edge of normal, but she nodded. Okay, she whispered, heart thudding like thunder. And just like that, the dare that was meant to be a joke became the beginning of something that would break rules, cross lines, and change both their lives forever. Aiden Blackwell wasn't used to surprises. In fact, he hated them. He built firewalls around everything. His company, his life, his heart. His schedule was planned to the second. No curveballs, no chaos. He liked his world quiet, logical, under control. So when he stepped out of the bathroom, steam curling behind him like smoke from a dragon's mouth, and saw a girl sitting stiffly on the edge of his bed, half-dressed, trembling, eyes wide with fear, his brain didn't process it immediately. For a full second, he thought she was a hallucination, the ghost of a dream. His towel slipped slightly as he blinked. She jumped to her feet, hands raised like she was surrendering. I swear, I didn't know anyone was in here, she said in a rush, voice shaky but soft. I thought this room was empty. I never meant to. I wasn't trying to. This is not what it looks like. His instincts screamed for control. He was seconds away from hitting the emergency button on the wall. Security would storm in. The girl would be dragged out. Problem solved. But he hesitated, because something about her didn't fit the pattern. He'd seen gold diggers. He knew fake smiles and strategic tears. He knew rehearsed lines, perfume that cost more than some people's rent, and women who walked into his world with masks so perfect they almost fooled him. But this girl, she looked like she'd walked out of a college dorm, not a scandal. Hair in soft waves, no heavy makeup, oversized sweater half slipping from her shoulder. There was no seduction in her eyes, only terror and honesty, real raw honesty that cracked straight through his walls. Wait, she said again, voice quieter now. Please don't call the cops. It was a dare, a stupid one. I lost. My friend. She said, I'm not like this. Her voice broke on the last word. Aiden stood completely still, towel clutched in one hand, water dripping from his hair to the floor. Then he laughed, not politely, not sharply, a real, startled, breath-stealing laugh that sounded like it hadn't existed in his throat for years. The sound startled them both. Emily blinked. He took a slow step forward, his laughter softening into a chuckle. You broke into the penthouse of the most private man in New York. On a dare. She nodded, cheeks blazing. I was dared to sneak in. I didn't think the door would be unlocked. I thought I'd just take a picture of the door and leave. He raised an eyebrow. And the half-naked part? She looked down at herself and squeaked, yanking the edge of her sweater down. I tripped. On your rug. I was crawling around, trying to hide. Then I heard you coming and I panicked. Aiden stared for a long moment, processing the surreal truth. She wasn't lying. She wasn't acting. She was just caught. And it had been years, years since he'd met someone who didn't want anything from him. Sit, he said suddenly. Emily blinked. What? He motioned to the sofa. Sit. You're shaking. She hesitated. Relax, he said with a smirk. I'm not the big bad wolf. Yet. That line shouldn't have made her laugh. But it did. A breathy, nervous giggle that slipped past her lips before she could stop it. She sat down, clutching her purse like a life raft. Her legs bounced, anxious. She glanced at the door. I can go. I should go. Aiden disappeared briefly into his closet and returned moments later, fully dressed in dark jeans and a casual shirt. If I wanted you gone, he said, you'd already be escorted out. Emily swallowed. Why are you being nice? He leaned against the marble counter, folding his arms. Because you're not trying to manipulate me. That's rare. Silence filled the space between them. Heavy. Strange. He studied her like a puzzle, like a line of code he couldn't debug. And she stared right back. Your name, he asked? Emily. Last name? Carter. He nodded. Emily Carter, college student, dared into breaking and entering. She winced. Yeah, doesn't sound great when you say it like that. He chuckled again. Then the strangest thing happened. He walked to the kitchen, poured 2 cups of tea, and returned, setting one in front of her. Chamomile, he said, for anxiety. She stared at the cup like it might bite her. You're not drugging me, are you? His smile stretched. You've got spirit. Emily took the cup, hands still trembling. They sat in silence, sipping tea. The city glowed outside the giant windows. It should have been awkward, terrifying, but instead it felt like a quiet secret. I never do things like this, she said softly, setting her cup down. I'm the safe girl, the careful one. Aiden's voice matched her quiet tone. And I never let strangers into my world. Their eyes met, and in that moment, a billionaire built from algorithms and ambition, and a girl shaped by books and dreams, felt something click into place. He didn't invite her to leave. He didn't ask her to stay. Instead, he simply said, tell me something real. And Emily Carter did. She told him about her small-town life, her dream of teaching, her fear of being invisible, her longing to feel seen, even if just once. And Aiden Blackwell listened. No interruptions, no clock ticking in his mind, no cold calculations, just silence, and a quiet hum of something dangerous and beautiful beginning to bloom. Emily Carter had woken up expecting to be gone, to be escorted out politely, or maybe not so politely. She had mentally prepared for the humiliation of walking past the concierge in last night's clothes, her hair a mess, eyes downcast. But when she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was sunlight pouring through the enormous windows, and the smell of fresh coffee and vanilla waffles. And Aiden Blackwell. He stood in the kitchen, barefoot, flipping pancakes with a surprising level of focus for a billionaire. You're still here, he said without looking up. Emily blinked, sitting up slowly on the massive couch. I can go. I thought. He turned, meeting her gaze, and smiled softly. I made extra. And that was how it started. One breakfast turned into a whole day. He took her on a private helicopter tour of the city. They had lunch in a garden no one else knew existed, nestled between 2 skyscrapers. Dinner in a hidden jazz club, where the lights were low and the music curled like smoke around them. Every time Emily tried to pull away, say goodbye, return to her real life, Aiden would do something, quiet, thoughtful, disarming, that made her stay just a little longer, and slowly she stopped questioning it. But something hovered between them, an invisible wall, not of class or money or lifestyle, something deeper. Aiden would smile, laugh, even flirt, but behind his eyes there was always a door locked tight. She asked about his family once. He went silent. Another time, she noticed an old scar on his side and asked where it came from. He changed the subject. There was so much tenderness in him, but it was wrapped in barbed wire. And still she stayed. Because when she looked at him, she didn't see the billionaire. She saw a man carrying something heavy, a man who'd built walls not to keep people out, but to keep himself in. One evening, the sky outside turned gold and purple as they sat by the fireplace, sipping wine and talking about childhood dreams. Aiden's voice grew softer, almost haunted. My family wasn't good, he said finally. They built their fortune on the backs of others. Real estate, legal loopholes, displacement. My father made enemies of entire communities and smiled while doing it. Emily's heart tightened. But you're not him. Aiden stared into his glass. I made sure of that, but I don't advertise it. People assume I'm just another spoiled white man who lucked into money, and I let them. Why? Because it's easier to work in silence. No applause, no expectations, just action. Emily didn't press. She let his silence speak. That night, long after he fell asleep, she wandered the penthouse. She wasn't snooping. Not really. She just wanted to know him better. Beyond the expensive suits and sharp wit, she stumbled on a door she hadn't noticed before. Tucked behind a bookshelf, hidden by design, she turned the handle, and her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. No luxury, no flash, just shelves of binders, framed letters, and newspaper clippings. Donations made to civil rights organizations, schools in underserved neighborhoods, clinics in forgotten towns, all in anonymous names. Photos of smiling children holding up backpacks and thank you cards. Handwritten notes from young adults whose lives were changed by scholarships that never carried Aiden's name. On the far wall hung awards, quiet acknowledgments from Black-led nonprofits, LGBTQ+ groups, and immigrant community centers, all bearing to the anonymous soul who never stopped believing. Emily's eyes filled with tears. This was the heart he never showed. Not the billionaire. Not the guarded man in glass towers. This was Aiden Blackwell, the one who burned down his family's legacy to build something good in its place. Quietly. Boldly. She walked closer, her fingers grazing a letter from a young girl who said her mom could now afford insulin because of his help. And in that moment, something inside her cracked wide open. She turned around and there he was, leaning in the doorway, watching, his expression unreadable. "You weren't supposed to find this," he said quietly. Her heart thundered. "Why not?" He looked down. "Because I don't want people thinking I'm a hero. I'm not." She crossed the room to him, slowly, every step deliberate. "You're not a hero," she said. "You're just good and kind and too afraid to admit it." His eyes met hers, raw and uncertain. Silence stretched. And then Emily reached up and kissed him. Not rushed, not heated, just soft, certain. A kiss filled with truth and gratitude and the weight of everything unspoken between them. His hands found her way slowly, as if unsure he deserved to touch her, but she held him tighter. In that kiss, they didn't solve everything, but the walls cracked, the silence melted, and two broken people, one afraid of being seen, the other terrified of being known, finally found something worth holding on to. The first few days were perfect, almost dreamlike. Emily and Aiden found themselves wrapped in a world that didn't feel real, a bubble suspended above the noise, untouched by judgment, scandal, or consequence. They watched old movies at midnight, made pancakes at 2 a.m., and danced barefoot on marble floors while the city slept outside. He told her she was light in the dark. She told him he was more human than any man she'd ever known. And for a fleeting moment, it felt like maybe, just maybe, they could outrun the weight of the world. But fairy tales don't survive in glass castles, especially not when the world decides to throw stones. It started with a flicker on her phone screen, a text from her college roommate. "Are you okay? Don't go online." Then the flood began, a grainy photo of Emily and Aiden walking hand in hand in Central Park. Another one, them laughing over dinner at a rooftop restaurant. And then the headline that shattered everything: "Virgin girl breaks into billionaire's bed." Emily's face was everywhere, cropped, zoomed, ridiculed. News anchors speculated about her modest background. Bloggers dissected her outfits like she was a zoo exhibit. Paparazzi staked out the hotel entrance. But it wasn't just gossip, it was cruel, ugly. Comments poured in like venom. "She's faking the whole thing. Gold-digging virgin act, classic play. She probably set him up. Look at her, not even hot. Why is a billionaire messing with a charity case white girl who teaches immigrants? Who's paying her?" Emily couldn't breathe. She tried to laugh it off at first, but every swipe on her phone pulled her deeper into the hole. She stopped answering texts, stopped eating, stopped speaking. Aiden tried to protect her. He shut down interviews, threatened lawsuits, ordered every PR expert in the city to fix it. But it was too late. The damage wasn't just public, it was personal. Because the worst part wasn't the tabloids. It was that even people she knew, college peers, old friends, began to look at her differently, as if she had sold herself, as if what they had wasn't real. And that's when she cracked. Late one night, in the middle of his penthouse, she stood barefoot on the hardwood floor, holding her phone with trembling hands. "I didn't sign up for this," she whispered. Aiden walked to her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "I know, I'm so sorry." She leaned back against him, eyes full of tears. "I can't even open Instagram. They found my mom's address. They're calling her job." His body tensed. "They crossed a line. I'll fix it." "No," she said, pulling away. "You can't fix this, Aiden. You're the one they love to hate. I'm just collateral." He reached for her again, but she stepped back. "This isn't about you protecting me," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about me losing myself." He went quiet. "You told me you live in silence," she continued. "But I can't. I don't know how. I don't have a team or a lawyer on speed dial. I'm just me." "I never meant for this to happen," he said, pain in his voice. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw a man breaking. A man who loved her, but didn't know how to save her from a world that had already made up its mind. "I need to go," she whispered. His voice cracked. "Emily, please." But she was already moving, packing the few clothes she had, shoving everything into a canvas tote bag. Her hands shook, her tears silent. He stood in the doorway, helpless. "Where will you go?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. "Somewhere no one knows my name." "Don't let them take you from me." She froze, her back to him. "They didn't take me," she said softly. "You let them in, by pretending we weren't real." The door clicked shut behind her, and Aiden Blackwell, the man who built an empire from code and concrete, collapsed onto his knees alone for the first time in years. Not because someone left, but because the one person who truly saw him chose to disappear. For weeks the world moved on, but Aiden didn't. He no longer cared about meetings or mergers. He ignored board calls, ducked investor dinners, and shut down social appearances. The stock price dipped. Headlines buzzed. What happened to Aiden Blackwell? Billionaire in hiding. Breakup turned CEO into ghost. But none of it mattered, because he had lost more than a girlfriend. He had lost the only person who ever looked at him like he was more than the money. And in the silence, Aiden finally saw the truth. He'd been complicit by staying quiet, by letting narratives twist, by protecting his reputation instead of the woman he loved. And for once, he didn't want to play the game. He wanted to rewrite the rules. The announcement came with no warning. Every major network got the call. Aiden Blackwell will give a live interview. No pre-screened questions, no conditions. TV stations scrambled. The world watched, curious and skeptical. Some thought it was PR. Others expected denial. No one expected what came next. He walked onto the set in a black suit. No tie, no smile. Just a gravity in his eyes that silenced the room. The interviewer leaned forward, ready to dissect the scandal. But Aiden raised his hand, calm and direct. "I'll begin," he said, "and I won't take long." The camera zoomed in, and the world held its breath. "My name is Aiden Blackwell," he began, "and for years I've lived behind a wall of wealth and silence. It was safe, it was easy, but it was cowardly." He looked into the lens like he was staring into every living room in America. "A few weeks ago, a young woman came into my life, by accident, on a dare. She didn't mean to end up in my home, but she stayed because, unlike anyone I've ever met, she was honest, kind, brave." Images flashed on screen. Emily walking with him, laughing, radiant. She was mocked, lied about, dehumanized. He paused, the weight of emotion creeping into his voice. "People said she was using me, that she didn't belong in my world. But the truth is, I didn't deserve her in mine." The interviewer blinked, stunned. The room fell into pin-drop silence. "And I let it happen," Aiden continued. "I didn't protect her. I thought if I stayed quiet, it would pass. But silence has never saved anyone. It only protects the powerful." He cleared his throat, emotion raw and real. Which is why today I'm stepping down as CEO of Blackwell Industries. Gasps, murmurs, a flood of texts across the globe. I've spent a decade building something I thought would give me purpose. But purpose doesn't live in profits. It lives in people, in love, in justice. The screen behind him lit up with bold white letters. The Emily Project. I'm using every dollar I made, every connection, every tool to launch a foundation in her name. The Emily Project will expose media bias, uplift marginalized voices, support honest journalism, and remind this country that dignity has no price tag. He looked up. She reminded me what it means to be human, what it means to love without judgment. And if I never see her again, I want her to know. He stopped, exhaled. I was a better man with you. The feed cut, and for the first time the internet didn't explode with mockery. It wept. Journalists who had once ripped Emily apart now wrote op-eds asking how they missed the real story. Activists reached out, offering to partner with the foundation. Teenagers posted videos of themselves crying, saying they'd never seen a man take that kind of stand. The Emily Project went viral overnight. And somewhere, watching from a tiny apartment in a quiet neighborhood, Emily Carter broke down in tears. Not because he said her name on national TV, not because of the foundation or the grand gesture, but because, after everything, they finally saw each other. The world saw her, the world saw him, and they were no longer hiding. Emily had sworn off watching anything related to Aiden Blackwell. She'd buried herself in quiet routines, helping her mother around the house, reading on the porch swing, taking long walks under the endless Nebraska skies. But something made her pause that evening. Her mother stood by the doorway, holding the remote, her voice gentle. "Sweetheart, I think you should see this." The screen flickered to life. There he was, Aiden, on national TV, but not like she'd ever seen him before. He wasn't cold or distant. He wasn't the billionaire with perfect posture and flawless charm. He was raw. He was real. And he was saying her name like it was a prayer. Emily didn't realize she was crying until her mother wrapped her arms around her from behind. "He loves you," her mom whispered. "That's not just a man confessing. That's a man coming home." She didn't sleep that night. She just stared out the window, moonlight spilling over her quilted bedspread, wondering if second chances were real. A week later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Emily opened it slowly, unsure of what or who waited on the other side. And there he was, Aiden Blackwell. No cameras, no bodyguards. Just a man holding a single white rose, eyes glistening with the same vulnerability she'd seen on TV. "Hi," he said softly. Her breath caught. He took a cautious step forward. "I don't want to make a scene. I don't want the media. I just wanted you to know." "I meant every word," she swallowed. "You came all the way here?" "I would have walked if I had to." She let out a half laugh, half sob. He extended the rose. "Come home with me." There was a long silence. Then she stepped outside, barefoot on the porch steps, and took his hand. "I already am." They didn't return to the city with fireworks. They didn't post reunion photos or hold press conferences. They rebuilt quietly like gardeners tending to new roots after a storm. Aiden sold the penthouse and moved to a brownstone in a working-class neighborhood, somewhere that felt like life, not luxury. They shared Sunday breakfast with neighbors, went to community events, and signed up to volunteer at local schools. Not as celebrity couple, but as Emily and Aiden, just two people trying to make a difference. She spoke in classrooms about media literacy and self-worth. He led workshops on tech ethics and digital compassion. They visited towns where prejudice had left scars, sitting in circles with young people who had never seen love modeled without conditions. They didn't hide their past. They shared it. The dare, the scandal, the pain, the healing. And through it all, their message was simple. See each other. Not the stereotypes, not the headlines, the humans. The Emily Project expanded globally. It partnered with schools, funded scholarships for underrepresented students, and launched a mental health hotline for people affected by online harassment. Everywhere they went, someone had a story. A teacher who said Emily inspired her students. A teenager who said Aiden's speech gave him courage to come out. A mother who said their story reminded her to love beyond fear. Years later, they returned to that same hotel in New York, the one where it all began. Emily stood in the now renovated penthouse, smiling as she looked out over the skyline. "Do you ever think about how crazy this all was?" she asked. Aiden slipped his arms around her from behind. "Every day." She turned, resting her head against his chest. "Would you change anything?" He shook his head. "Not if it still leads to you." They didn't need fairy tales anymore. They had truth. They had each other. And the world had their example. Their story didn't just change their lives. It challenged a society to open its eyes. To stop asking, "What does she have that he wants?" and start asking, "What can love teach us about what really matters?" Because once a quiet girl from Nebraska dared to do something reckless, and it led her not just to a man, but to a movement, to purpose, to healing, to home.